Hello children, this is Decliner. Unfortunately, due to many circumstances involving my previous videos, Decliner and Sifu's account has been permanently banned. It's rather unfortunate because the account was around since the beginning of YouTube and it's rather sad to see it go. However, with some quick thinking, Sifu managed to create a few backup accounts just in case something like this happened. We will discuss the details at another time, but today children will be retreading on a topic I made before. It seems that most of you don't care, but I certainly do. So let's get on with this and get some feelings off my chest. Alerting all doujin circles, manga artists, and comic writers. You have the chance to set right what once went wrong in one of the most interesting franchises of the year. It is clearly evident that the author of the original story doesn't really know what sort of story they want to tell. Only you can finish what was started. So, what are we going to be talking about in this video? Children, we will be trying to see if we can fix the show known as Shingeki no Kyojin. Why? Well, this is one of the only anime that I came out of imagining a completely better story with the same pieces of narrative elements that were given to us. No, this is not the, oh, if the show was twice as long, then it'd be great. Or, oh, if we got rid of the second episode, then it'd be great. Or, oh, if we had a Yuri scene here, then it'd be great. Because most of that lacks any real pedagogic critique. Let's get started on the surgery, shall we? By that, I mean we should be nice before we start to roll some heads. The setting is actually one of the sole positive points of the show. This is a closed-off world where the last vestiges of humanity live in constant fear of predators known as titans. I thought we dealt with that a few thousand years ago. They've built walls to isolate themselves from the dangerous predators, and armies are being constantly trained to become versatile weapons against the enemy. This is a good setting. Good job, author. I will have to change one thing about it though. If this story is going to be a somewhat omniscient third-person narrative, then we should have some interesting characters outside of the Ninja Appreciation Society. Also, do we really have to have every single random piece of debris killing a person? It's kind of hilarious how many times random body parts and rocks kill people. This isn't the day after tomorrow from the last time I checked, sigh. Here's a question that I've been meaning to ask about this show for a while now. What is the premise of this anime? As in, what is the point of this story? Are we exploring a kind-hearted heroine's descent into villainy? Are we watching a young boy grow up into a man through the trials that will force him to confront his true self? Are we witnessing the downfall of a protagonist that was caused by a single flaw or mistake? Are we trying to mark the journey of a person who will become a hero? Are we encountering a mystery about why our characters are being fed protein powder every time there happens to be bad news for a video game company? Right now, all I can get from the show is that the asshole protagonist must go to his basement to find a revelation that will help with his efforts to kill all who he deems as his enemy. And the time that he's taking to get there is protein powder hurl-inducing. Children, let's conceive a clear premise for the story. Alright, the gist of the story is about a young man finding confidence in himself and achieves the impossible by snatching victories from the jaws of defeat. Sounds vaguely familiar, right? It's supposed to because we can take the story anywhere we want to, though we know what the core of the story is. Just like making original songs with the new Miku software. Children, make some original content so that we can justify the English edition! You can't just do covers! That defeats the point of Vocaloid! The premise of a show like this shouldn't be complicated, but neither too simple. Edest, we don't have to go with a young man embarks on a journey of vengeance and does things. I mean, at least say, a young man embarks on a journey of vengeance and finds that at the end of this road, he will dig 2 graves. From this statement, I can get a clearer sense of the tone for what the story is going to be about. It's dark and about the theme of vengeance. What is this anime's tone? It's dark with, lighthearted slapstick comedic bits, and, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's enough for now. Instead of talking about inconsistent tones, let's go with the characters next. So, asshole! Okay, why don't I get serious here? Aaron, and Aaron. Wait. Aaron, Eowyn, and Erwin. Why did we decide on such indistinguishable names? Alright, stop. We're going to call them something else. Axel, Geese, and Rossi. Like I've explained in the previous video, Axel is the rebellious, immature, selfish, loose cannon main character. He doesn't really do anything other than getting people pissed off about him and putting everyone in danger. Constantly. A lot. The worst part is he's just a dimwit who lacks any sort of higher understanding of the situation at hand or of the greater world. I mean, some characters can be a bit slow, but come on! His only saving grace comes from the writer of the show deciding to give him superpowers that make him more unique than other people. Get it? He's the main character, the person who can associate most with the audience, and he's become more unique than anyone else in the world. I mean, don't you want to be just like him? I don't care about your answer, but that's what the writer was thinking is all. As you can tell, my general feelings for the Shounen protagonist archetype are like Microsoft's general feelings for people who have less than stellar connections to the internet. Allow me to summarize what the hot-blooded, loose cannon main character archetype is. You ready for this? Punch! Oh no, my punch didn't work! Now I'm gonna have to make a bigger punch! revenge! Let's go back to shit on this character some more. Axel is constantly putting himself and others in dangerous situations that serve no purpose at the end. Though apparently everyone has a high enough level of patience that borders on Hollywood's patience with M. Night Shyamalan making a second good movie. So why does he do this? We see in the beginning that he wants to join the Scouts because he refuses to be trapped in a city-state and explore the outside world at the expense of everyone else's health. His drive only gets fueled even more so after witnessing the death of his mother. So what does that change? Apparently, not much besides motivation. Axel wants to join the Scouts now because he wants to shank people for killing his mom. Okay, so is there anything else other than that? No? He just wants revenge? Certainly, he does want to get to his basement because that's going to change the tide of war somehow. Wait, actually, if the basement holds info that can change the tide of war, why the hell didn't the father release the information himself? Oh, fuck it. It just seems that Axel doesn't have a sense of justice, but he just wants to murder all of his enemies because they killed his mom. Oh dear God! Now let's talk about Stoic, fuck it, Miu, the lady of the trio. Let's remember from what we have seen, this character doesn't change much. Miu has gone through most of her character growth completely off screen and before she could hold an intellectual political discussion, because that's the only way you could evaluate one's status as a human being. Of course, kids don't count. So now we're going to tweak her current personality in order to fit our story better. Let's establish that not only do I hate the generic shonen protagonists, but I also hate stoic badasses that do nothing but be emotionless. So, how are we going to stop her from being an unintentional laughable character? In order to lead up to that answer, we will ask the question, why is Miu so emotionless? Shall we go to the beginning of her story? When we meet Miu in the earliest point of her life, we see her as a small child of a Caucasian father and an Asian mother, even though their faces don't look remotely different. What is there to note about this scene? Remember? I know you don't want to get hemorrhages, but we must do this in order to save other children from the same fate. I've given you enough stalling tactics to give an answer. I don't know what your answer is since I can't hear you. However, I will assume that you said, Miu is showing a lot of emotions, like a regular person. I know, it's crazy. It's almost as if we were presented with a jumping board that can either go into a horizontal car crusher or a pool with multiple variations of Hatsune Miku in a swimsuit who has coincidentally enough taken a lot of aphrodisiac. The author of this anime decided to go with the former option because he doesn't appreciate the prowess of Miku, but I will be the smarter man making the sexier decision on character profiling. So when shit hits the fan, see parents getting murdered, we see Miu become jaded to the world and become sociopathic from then onwards. The anime shows us that Miu is always stoic except for when it concerns yelling out Axel's name in surprisingly out of character fashions. For us, we can actually approach her character in two ways. The first option is that since Miu has gone through very troubling events, she will forever be unsociable with people in order to avoid bonding with others and facing the very real threat of losing them earlier than anticipated. So this character will be a bit more of an extreme version of what we saw in the show. She would probably not be close with anyone and rely solely on herself. If Miu can't do something, then she'll either give up or keep trying without asking for help. In this case, she won't show up in the story as much as she did in the anime. The second option is to go with a Miu that is incredibly reliant on Axel. Since Axel could be considered as her savior, she will devote her entire being to him and sort of become a self-imposed slave to his goals. That is the reason why, when alone, she shows her emotions, her true self, to him and only him. If there's anyone else present, then she just quietly hangs around, having no opinion on non-Axel related topics whatsoever. If Miu can't do something that is related to Axel's goals, then she'll try with some help. I'm thinking that she wouldn't be honest about it, but she's definitely not clever enough to be manipulative. I suppose you could say that I never really bought Miu's mentality from the anime. It just seemed too bizarre of a leap of logic for me to accept. Let's go onwards with the new character. Blondie, oh for fuck, Geese is out of the three main cast members the person who is most fascinating on a narrative level. We have a kid who doesn't believe in himself, who's weak, who's dependent, and who has lost everything and everyone that he has ever loved. We'll see him developing not only his intellectual and tactical skills, but also in badassery in terms of strength and his heart in terms of self-confidence. There's potential for so much growth here. So why isn't this kid the main character? We're going to stop talking about characters at this point because like beating a dead horse with a bat filled with protein powder, introducing secondary characters that get killed off in the next episode is a horrendously underhanded way to procure some sort of emotional reaction out of people. It's probably not a good thing that I seriously thought that the same side character died 3 times throughout the story when they were all actually different people. Also, why is everyone a ninja? Children who are fans of this show, name me one character that isn't a part of the army and is not portrayed in a dubious light. It's like, we're done. We're done. We're done. On to the story plot points. Ugh, this is going to kill me. Alright, so we can actually salvage most of the episodes that go on before the training camp. I mean, that's just kind of there, and the interesting bits should be saved for later. So at the training camp, we can go about the story in one of two ways. First, we can do what the anime did and just skip 2 years into the future, or second, we can explore our characters as they train to become soldiers. Either way is perfectly fine. Regardless, the animation company handled this decision like how politicians handle website creation. We skip the 2 years of training and find our characters utterly the same from 2 years prior. Do I really have to point out that people change on a constant basis? Who we were 2 years ago are not who we are now. Also, time skips are a narrative device generally serving as an antithesis for characters' personalities from when we last saw them. What has changed about these characters in 2 years? They can adequately use magical ninja gear, I guess. Well, what about their disposition or relationships or the ability to take off their clothes for the occasional surprise orgy? Really? Those didn't develop after 2 years? God damn it. Well, it's time to fix this part of the story. So, what I propose for the boarding of events here is that we don't skip the 2 years into the future. We still don't know about this new world. And I think it'd be fitting that the audience is learning alongside the cast's training period. Like I said before, we didn't really get a chance to bond with any of the new characters introduced, and we're somehow supposed to care when they get killed off. If you think that this segment of the story would be boring, let's remember that one of the greatest movies ever created was almost entirely focused on that character's training session. While our characters are preparing themselves for adulthood in various fashions, a Titan raid suddenly happens. Our cast is not properly trained, but they are drafted into the army in order to fend off the raid. A lot of people will die, including maybe some important characters. We'll talk about that later. Also, here's a good point to bring up the number of casualties. Make the death toll impactful in the story. Have it affect our characters in such a way that I wouldn't think these people were following our heartless bastards who think that their fellow friends are expendable. 184 people died in this attack. That type of statement should never feel like an afterthought. Or we can go with the easier route and do the 2-year time skip. But we're going to use this narrative device responsibly and provide a sort of commentary with it. It's quite straightforward to remedy this problem. Have the characters all be more friendly with each other, be trusting of one another, but also self-capable. It will show us the growth that these characters have gone through without telling us that these characters have gone through some growth. In the anime, all the pre-established relationships stay the same after 2 years. Why are all of you still so formal with each other? You slut together! Hey, remember how the show tricks us into thinking that it was doing a plot twist early in the story? We're actually going to go through with it this time. I'm talking about, of course, the 7th episode spoiler. Axel gets eaten by a Titan. A bit of context. Axel needs to save his best friend Geese, and he decides to do so by switching places with Geese. This leads to Axel sacrificing himself and being supposedly killed off from the show. You know, this was actually the point where I started to get interested in the anime. Then, in the next episode, Axel gets unwelcomely revived with superpowers. Oh, I'm so sorry, anime. Your show officially died at this point. I feel I need to say this at least once, but every good story, anime or otherwise, has always done at least this in order to improve themselves. They drop the dead weight, 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 they drop the dead weight. Now that you whip a sap have a sample, you can make your constantly repeating 10-second riffs for the background music of your Western pop songs. You're welcome. In order to renovate this story into something competent, we're going to change its plot twist. Here's my version of the scene and we'll see if you like it. Geese is about to be killed by a Colossus. Wouldn't that be cool? Subsequently, Axel saves Geese by switching places with him. Get this, and then Axel throws the key to his basement to Geese. He'll say something along the lines of, "Geese, get to the basement of my house. You will find something that will save all of humanity. Don't believe in yourself because I believe in you." We can scratch out that last part. For the audience, this is the part where Martin Lawrence gets a surprise prank call we all remember. This scene allows the audience to acknowledge that no character in the world is safe, even if they are the leads in the story. Just like trying to pull a kid away from a frozen pole his tongue is stuck to, real tension has been established in our scenes. Anyways, Geese is left in shock or whatever, but he'll wind up living to tell the tale. Now that we have killed off the unlikable main protagonist, the narrative viewpoint will now switch to this lady here. Some of you might ask me, why are you making her the leading character? Shouldn't the blondie that Axel gave to be the new protagonist, passing on the torch and such? Gar, I'm going to have to explain myself. To answer your question, yes, that would probably be the normal way to go in a regular show. However, we're going to try to do something really interesting here, so stick with me. By making Miu the leading persona of the anime, we as an audience are forcing Miu, as a character, to change. Miu will be given military honors and be garnered as one of the leading heroes of the army. If we chose the severance package route from earlier, then Miu, when hearing news of the complete decimation of Axel's party, she won't bat an eye to it and she'll take the helm as the lead role of the story. If done right, the audience will feel a jarring sensation from the change of perspective, but it's an important one. We should see things from the eyes of other people, because the previous one was just a douchebag who kept complaining about how the world was unfair without trying to understand how the world works. If we went with the unquestionable servitude route, then when Miu hears of Axel's death, she will seclude herself from others. Her mindset at this point would probably be that she views herself as an extremely weak person for losing another loved one and having given love another chance. She'll start to stop associating with people altogether and train herself to become stronger than any enemy. Actually, when you really think about it, she's a legitimate version of the shonen protagonist. This mysterious and majestic thing that we just discovered is called character development. Miu will wind up getting stuck with the blonde kid because he's the only one that Miu could sort of consider as a friend, though she won't really try to go any deeper in their relationship. Either way, at the end of her story, she'll die because of her distrust and lack of faith upon anyone. It'll probably happen because of her self-exile actually causing trouble for others, and she could die to the Titans alone or wind up getting killed by some fellow soldiers looking to personally punish her for stealing the protein powder that was supposed to be used as torture devices. I'd probably say that she would die shortly after reaching the basement of the recently deceased. Rossi will wind up assigning her to go to Axel's basement with Geese, and then she'll die heroically by fending off the enemy and saving Geese, who she'll start seeing a bit of the determination that Axel once had. Actually, that sounds better than the hazing scenario. The narrative viewpoint will be switched again. Now the role has been given to Geese. We won't be killing this character unless it's the end of the story, where it really doesn't matter at that point. The reason why it's important to not kill him off is because Geese is the last fragment of the original cast that was introduced in the first episode. If we killed Geese off, then we risk the audience dropping the story altogether. Death would feel too gimmicky, and too many emotional connections have been lost during its run. You know, kind of like how the story is now. And who would be the protagonist after this? Some random side character? My answer to this question is just like any Shia LaBeouf's character's reaction to any undesirable events that have transpired. Multiple no's. On to the revelation at the basement. This really depends on whether or not we as the creators of the story want to end this in a tragedy or to give hope for a happy ending. Depending on the answer here, that means this could end very soon or not so soon. Either have the plot twist of the new information pave the way to victory for humanity, or make all the sacrifices for each character's death be all for naught. As I've said before, this really depends on how early you want to end this story. How appropriate that at the end of this video, I talk about the end of the anime. Here's a crucial point that the anime missed out on showing the audience: the introduction of a primary villain. The anime ends without establishing a larger enemy for our cast to face against. This is a rule that we have to establish for any tale told by a banal storyteller. Give us something that we should be really excited for next season or series. I really love how the anime ends by telling the audience what the show has accomplished in 26 episodes. I believe it was 3 pieces of information that was established before the episodes hit the double-digit mark, proving that the anime could have seriously been shorter. Not establishing a primary bad guy isn't an awful idea in itself, since zombies don't have a central leading force in a systematic order. However, the anime screams for a central character to face against. That's why I propose that we have an intelligent enemy for a cast to confront. Someone who's smarter, emotionally manipulative, can see 30 seconds ahead of others. That's a formidable opponent, and someone who is the direct opposite of Geese. They are on different sides of the same coin, but their beliefs and ideologies are all that separate them. Now we can offer some sort of temptation for Geese, a boy who isn't self-confident being given the chance to be something more in the world. It's here that our main character will show us his true colors. This is a side note, but I should mention that this story has no need for spies. Since we got rid of the magical transforming ability, the introduction of spies that can also transform is ridiculous and was a lousy plot device that forces the audience to forgive the earlier transgression of the plot point, where the main character gets revived and gets to control an organic mecha. Since we're not bound by such restrictions anymore, we'll just abandon it. Well, I suppose there can be spies, but just have them be blackmailed into doing it without any special superpowers, okay? Because that's the better way to go. And we are at the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed my very basic musings as to solving this horrendous problem with what amounts to fanfiction. Now we can think up a title. What'll it be? What'll it be? Oh, I got it! We'll call this Attack on Titan. Perfect. So, get to work. Thank you, and have a nice day.